Okay, on for the last little bit of our class for today. Again, today's goal was really about Kotlin and experimenting a little bit with Kotlin. And we're going to do something similar to what we did last week. And we're going to learn a little bit more about layouts and some quick color tunes. So we've got a name field, a password field. Now, if we want these to be the same size, we have this EMS equals 10 is sort of a default piece in here. And you can see when I removed it, it shrinks. Now they're still lined up. They're still centered based on enter name. The reason that it shrinks is this layout width right here. It says wrap content. So this is basically saying make this object as big or as small as it needs to be for whatever the content is. The other common one you'll see is match parent. So if I do that, you'll see it makes it as big as the parent will allow. So the parent is whatever container is holding it. But we may also choose to have some kind of fixed width. So in that case, if I start typing width, a lot of the times you can just guess on the names for these. It's pretty sweet. So if I say width, and let's say 200 density independent pixels. Does that look good? Sure. And I'm doing Alt-Enter, extract a string resource. I can give this a name. So I could call this, I don't know, input width. So throughout my app, if I want, input fields to always be the same size, I can do that. And you can see it actually added a new file here under my resources, values. Now there's one called dimens for dimensions. If I click on it, you can see it's got an input width. And if I decide to make it 280, when I jump back here, you'll see it adjusted that object automatically for me. So the nice thing is now, if I want all things to have that same input width, I could copy and paste from above, or I could say, at dimen, and you see it puts it here as an option, so I'll just do that. So again, the architecture is really trying to help us, make everything centralized in appropriate places. So if I had, 8 different activities and I want to change the input width for all of them, I can just do it in one spot, one time. And let's add in a button. So I'll go to design view, buttons, drag a button in. Let's go back to split view. So again, I clicked on buttons, just drag a button, dragged it in, and split. So my button's down here. It's unhappy because it's not constrained, right? It needs a vertical and horizontal layout. So the question in the chat was how to do it. Can you show it again? Which part? The width thing. Okay, sure. So let me just get rid of this. So these layout width and height, most of the time they'll say wrap content. You could also have them say match parent, so it'll grow to whatever space is available. Or you can have them as, you can set sort of like a fixed width. And if I start typing in here, you can see all the different ways that we can add width information. So you can have a constrained width, meaning it can grow up to a certain point, but then it's going to stop. Or I can have a fixed width, or I can have a minimum width. There's things that you can do. So I'm just going to choose fixed width. And in here, it's defaulting, it's suggesting to use the @dimen file input width. And that's how it's getting that. Now, how did that file come to be? If I change this, maybe I want, for some reason, let's go to the button. I'll do it on the button side. So on the button, if I want to set its width differently for some reason, if I put in a number, say 175 dp, okay, you can see it's going to suggest that I add this to my dimensions file. So what I can do is I hold down Alt and hit Enter. Whoops. And it will say extract this dimension resource. I have to give it a name, so maybe I call this button width. And I say OK. So now, whenever I add a button, I could, make sure that it's the exact same width throughout my application. And if I want to get really sophisticated, there's something over here called themes, where in themes I could say, okay, all buttons now use that dimension, right? So it will just automatically set it up for us. So let's center this. And we need to attach it to something above. Now it seems a little tight in here. So last time we had this margin top. So again, here I can give this a name in my resource file. So if I hit Alt Enter, I could say, I don't know, object vertical gap. And then I can just copy that vertical gap and put it here on my button. So this is centered, these all line up, they have the same gap, right? So there's things you can do to start making the look and feel consistent and nice. Now it doesn't like the word button here, so let's change that to say login. And I want you to add that to your string resources file now. Make it so that it's not hard-coded. I want to be able to see it in your strings.xml over here. So you do that. And in the chat, just let me know when you're done. And everyone's goal is to beat Lindsay. Oh, it's happened. They said that could never happen. She must have stepped away from her computer. Yeah, she just did not type. You're probably right. All right. So having trouble centering things. Okay. So if you're having trouble centering things, for example, what we do with the button here, I'm going to remove my constraints and we'll add them over here. Yes, you can use dragging rather than using XML. Whatever is easier for you is fine. So in terms of the constraints, I can say for my button here, I want to constrain the start of my button to the start of, and here's my options, right? So I can constrain it to the start of other items. So if I chose this edit text, you see how it would line up there. But really what I want to do is constrain it, if I want to center it, I want to constrain it to the parent. And then each object, the start is the left side and the end is the right side. So I'll say end to end. And you see, just by typing, it's going to bring up what we need. And again, I can choose the parent. So now it's going to be centered. And if I want to bring it down underneath my edit password field, I can say, well, constrain the top of my button to the bottom of, and then I can just choose my password field, and it brings it down. So you can do that through XML, or in the design view, you can click on it and you can grab these little bubbles and attach them that way. There's no right or wrong. No matter how you go about doing it, in the end, it's going to create the exact same XML. Okay, so now we've got our view, our activity layout in Android. And what we want to do is now use our controller file, our activity main file, to check if this password is valid. And if it is, we're going to do something in the bottom called a snack bar. So I want you to navigate to your activity main Kotlin file. Try to do it without me. And there was a request to just drop all of this into the chat. I will happily do that. Also sync it on GitHub for you. It looks like it truncated it. It's too much content. So let's do like a paste bin type of deal. Paste. So I pasted that into the chat. You can give that a try, because then you can just grab a copy and paste of that. When I tried to put it in the chat earlier, it didn't play nice. It truncated it. Okay, so we've got our layout, and the goal is to go to your controller file. So I'm going to go into my Java section, and up here is my main activity. And in here is where we can interact. Now, in order for our controller to see our objects from the view, who remembers what we have to enable? Starts with the word view. Looks like it's not coming through too quick. That's okay. I don't expect you to memorize everything that we've done. This is a very new environment for you. So it's called view binding. We need to enable view binding to make our view talk with our controller. So let's do that now. And it just occurred to me that the default IDs are terrible in this. So let's update these to be a little cleaner, nicer names. So to do that, I'm going to do Shift F6. Now the reason I don't just change it here directly is if I change it here directly to be like name edit text, that's fine for the ID, but anything that references the ID is now broken. If I used Shift F6, it will actually search through all of our code, and any references will be updated to the new name. So it saves us a ton of time. So let's call this the name edit text. And our password field, Shift F6. Let's call this the password edit text. And button we can leave as button. And the login, I guess I told you to do it, but I didn't. I'm going to extract the string resource. Say OK. The other thing that we're going to need for our snack bar is we actually need to be able to grab this constraint view. So the snack bar needs to attach to the constraint view. So I'm going to give our constraint view itself an ID. And let's call this login layout. Okay, so I added line 7 here. And I will put all of this into pastebin as well, because I changed it a little bit. So if you want my exact changes, it's on GitHub, or you can go to the link that I just put into the group chat. Okay, so now we've got nice IDs. Let's enable the view binding. So again, the idea of view binding is it creates this intermediary class that we don't touch, we don't modify it, but it's creating a situation where the IDs from the view can now be accessible into our controller class. So to do that, I go to my Gradle scripts, and under the module level Gradle, around line 17, 18 here, I'm going to say build features. And we're going to say view binding is set to true, meaning it's on. And whenever you make a change to your build.gradle file, you'll see in the upper right, it says sync now. So when you make a change, it wants to rebuild your project with these changes, stuff's turned on, turned off. It's going to rebuild your whole project with it. So let's sync now. Okay, so hopefully everyone's, mine went fairly quick. Hopefully yours did too. So now our binding class exists and we can use it. So I'm going to go to my controller. And in here, we're going to say private Okay. So I'll let you type, and then I'm going to review what we just did there. So on line 8, all we're doing here is defining a variable, and the variable name is binding, and its data type is something called activity main binding. And the name of this class is always going to be basically your layout name followed by the word binding. So our layout name was called activity main, right? So this is our activity main binding class. So that's on line 8. On line 12, so what happens is when the class is defined, right, this variable gets defined, but we actually have to run this onCreate method after that to actually, pull the IDs and make everything kind of come together. So that's why this is a late initialized variable. So when the onCreate method runs, and we'll get into the life cycle of activities starting and stopping, but onCreate is one of the methods that gets called when there's onStart, onCreate. So when it starts to build it, it's going to call this method. And this line here, 12, is where, behind the scenes, it's doing all the connections so that we now have this binding object that's referencing specific objects in our view. And you don't need to really understand that at a deep, deep level. You just need to know that you have to have that connection there. And then our content view is, this this piece with the with all of our objects in it. And now we can just use it. So what we want to do is put an action event or a listener on our button. So to refer to our button, we just have to say binding dot button, because that was the ID. And we're going to say set onClick listener. And so now nothing will happen until the button's clicked. But when the button's clicked, it's going to call this method. And that's so much cleaner than some other ways you could set click event or action event listeners on a button in Java anyways. Okay, so now let's look at what we want to do. We've got our password field. So I'm going to say if password edit text, and now you have to get the text. So we say text. And what this method returns is something called an editable with an exclamation mark. So we know that it's a non-null editable object, but it's still not a string. So what we have to do is actually convert it to a string. So we have a string that we can use, and then we're going to equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if anyone can tell me what the password to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is, then you'll be a king or a queen in my Spaceballs trivia. If anyone's watched the movie Spaceballs, they reference that that code. I'm dating myself again. Hey, Lindsay and Michael's got it too. All right, or at least a couple people have got my humor. Okay. No doubt the Warren Buffett account password. All right, so basically, if our password's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to call this snack bar. So a snack bar is like a toast, but it just shows a little bit differently. So I'm going to say snack bar make. And in here, we have to give whatever layout it is we want to attach the snack bar to. So I'm going to say binding dot login layout, because that's what the name was we gave for our whole layout. And then the string that we want to show, so we're going to say welcome So again, we're going to need to say get the text and convert it to a string. It's a big long thing there, isn't it? And then actually it's showing that as redundant, so maybe it's happy enough with just being editable. And then we have to say how long it shows. So snack bar. So one thing that's nice about the snack bar over the toast is we have more options. We have indefinite, long, and short. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe there's even a way that you can have like a checkbox in there, so you can put it to indefinite, and when they, select something or do something, then you could actually change the activity. But we'll set it for indefinite right now, and then we just have to say show. All right, so let's try. I'm going to rerun our application here. And we've made a lot of changes since last time, so you can see our Gradle down in the bottom right here, just chugging away. Okay. So if I say login right now, we didn't really have a scenario where it doesn't show the snack bar, or if you don't have a password. But if I enter my name, that part is okay. I can hit tab, and you see right away that password field, because we said it'd be numeric, only shows me numbers. So I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and say log in. If I shrink the keyboard, we can see it says welcome, Jarrett, in this black bar, and that will stay there until you change scenes or do something else. So that's if you wanted to add other information, like the password was wrong, we could say, else, I don't know, let's do toast. So now if I click login without the correct password, it'll just say invalid login. Right, so it's invalid. If I make it valid, it's a welcome message. Okay, I know there was a couple people that had some environment questions. So what I might do is I'll end the class here, and that will also slow things down if I end the class here. I'm going to sync this with GitHub. Although the formal, let's call it the lesson part of today, is complete, I'm going to hang out for the next 20 minutes, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the things that we've done, or if you're having problems with your specific environment, we can try to troubleshoot that. So let me just sync this to GitHub. Okay. So first things first, I got a request right at the end there. Slow down, hit the brakes, pump the brakes. Absolutely. Where did things go a little off the rails for you? Just let me know where to back up to, and I can try to explain it.
It was kind of the password part because I kind of missed the explanation while I was typing it out.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's tough, right? Because I'm talking and I'm typing. Totally fair. All right.
All right, thank you.
So this piece here then is what you were talking about. So the first bit here, we can call the binding class, or our object, our binding object, and its whole purpose is really to get us access to the objects in the view. or in our activity. So when we say binding dot anything, right at the top, it's going to show us all the elements or all the objects that are available to us in our activity. So you can see here we have the name, our overall layout, the button object, and our password object. So that's what's happening on line 17. We're grabbing the button object and we're setting it. We're creating a click listener. So whenever the button is clicked, it will do whatever is inside these brackets. And so the next line here, it's saying, again, sort of a similar thing. It says if, and we use that binding class to grab the password edit text. And if you remember in Java and JavaFX, if you had a edit text field, you would say you'd call the method get text. And what it would return to you is a string object. Now in this case, where the equivalent method is text, not get text, but it returns an editable object, not a string. So that's why we called the toString method here. So basically what this is doing, that whole bit that's highlighted, is it's going to our password field and returning whatever's in it as a string. And then we're just asking, well, is that the exact same string as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? If it is, then we create this thing called a snack bar. So a snack bar and a toast are similar. A snack bar lives at the bottom of an activity, and you can't see it behind the keyboard. A toast floats on top of everything. So they have, different purposes, or slightly different UI, slightly different ways of behaving. So in the snack bar, when we want to create a snack bar object, we call the method make. We have to pass in whatever layout we want the snack bar on, and then some string. Okay, so in this case, our string, I said the word welcome, and then I went to the name field and said get me the text from that. So it said welcome Jarrett. This bit here is how long the snack bar will show for. So it can be short, long, or I chose indefinite, which means just leave it up there. As long as we're on that activity, leave it up there. And then we're showing in both cases here. And then if the password didn't match this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then we'll do a little toast that says, okay, that's an invalid login. Can't wait to code with an egg.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now. So.
Good.
I'm still kind of struggling to get how snack bar works.
Yeah, so the big thing with snack bar and toast, okay, it's just like when this is the idea of like black box coding, right? It's a snack bar needs a layout to attach to. So when we show it here, it's part of this layout, okay? It's just part of that activity layout. It's just on the bottom there. So if I bring up, yeah, exactly. Whereas this toast object, it lives, it sort of floats on top of everything. They're very similar, but slightly different. So for the toast, we pass in the keyword this, which is like this application, this context, the whole application. And then we pass in a welcome message. So almost the exact same thing here. We're just a different starting point, right? One's passing in a context, one's passing in a layout. Then they both take a string, and they both take a duration to live. All right. Good stuff.
I have a quiz today.
Yep.
So I kind of take the quiz I wrote the classes because I am very fresh in my mind.
Okay.
And all of the pictures of the code snippets are corrupted for me. Like it's the little broken image
Oh no.
file.
Ah.
And I thought it would be good for you to know before like everyone takes that quiz and everyone gets that.
Oh man. That's unfortunate. Yes, thank you for letting me know.
The ones that are just like the strings, like yeah, that's fine, like I know that one, but like everything that's encoded, it's like a broken image file, and like I'm midway through this quiz, and I was like, can you also make it so I can retake this quiz?
Oh, that's weird. So on mine it shows. Huh.
Can I show my screen just to show it?
Oh, I believe you 100%.
Okay.
Just don't know what I'm going. These are the images here.
Okay, well, if you want to leave it up, I can take it right now, but like I feel like this might be a recurring issue with everyone else.
Yeah. What browser are you using to do the test in?
Chrome.
Would you mind trying? Do you have a different browser available?
I have Edge, but it's also technically Chrome.
Right.
Do you want me to try Firefox?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Firefox right now, and it's showing. I'm just curious. It's an image. It shouldn't matter what browser, but.
The other issue is you'll have to take it once, so to be able to read this quiz.
All right.
If you could somehow unlock that again.
Okay.
Or I'm just gonna give me perfect for how fast I typed today. That would be great.
Oh, all right. So let's see. Test options. Everyone will probably get perfect anyways, I'm sure. Okay, I'm gonna have to think about an option for that. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, though.
Yeah, no worries.
Yours is in.
Oh, mine is also broken on Firefox too. Eric.
Yeah, I just saw that. Let me try it if I turn it off. So this is in my edit mode is off. So this is my. This is supposed to be what you see. I wonder why it's not coming through. It must be something like it's living locally in my browser and not living in Blackboard for some reason. Like it must be referencing something. Okay, I'm gonna have to figure that out.
I tried to open the image in another tab, and it sends me to Lakehead University login.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I bet you I know what's going on then. Yeah, because I taught this course at Lakehead, and I ported. So if there's something in here that's requiring you to be.
If I go into Firefox, I lose both of my chances to take this quiz.
Okay, you don't have to.
Okay.
I'm going to disable the quiz, and I'll re-enable it and let you know when it's available.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it to my attention.
Yeah, hey, no worries. I'm glad to do it now instead of like it's like 2 days before the quiz is due and none of us can somehow take it.
We should have till next week, no? Did I? Yeah, we got till the 22nd.
Yeah, but like if you did it on the Monday, it would have been an issue.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, please, before we start early. Let me just make this unavailable for now, and then we'll figure out a way around this. All right, thanks for bringing it to my attention.
I'll post it in the Discord that I have with my friends so that they know too.
Thank you. All right.
All right, see you next week, Jerry.
Yep, take care. All right.
I'm older.
Pardon me?
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah, I have an issue with the AVD. Like I try to
Sure. Let me just stop the recording here.